Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 90, featuring Jason Matias. He's an amazing photographer, artist with a lot of really impressive work on the blockchain on both Cardano and Ethereum. Welcome, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm getting ready, getting jazzed for this conversation. It's a little bit early for me, but let's go.
Joining us from Seattle. What time is it over there?
It's 10 a.m., so I guess it's not that early, but I don't
at least it's still morning for you. It's technically in the afternoon now, but I appreciate you joining, and I'm also jazzed for the convo. You have a very impressive resume and really amazing art that I've seen, and you're, as a photographer, kind of jumping into Web3. I'm really interested in kind of picking your brain about it. So welcome everyone to Web3 Warriors. As you may have guessed, today we're going to be talking about photography NFTs. I'm David Karoma. I go by Chrome in the metaverse, and I'm your host. Welcome, and please do ask any questions for those of you who are joining in the live stream. I appreciate you joining. We always like to encourage any conversation, any thought-provoking questions, and we do give out some free NFTs for the most thought-provoking question as well. So again, thank you to those of you who joined the live stream. We will have this up on all the podcast networks by tomorrow, but you're getting the early access. So today we're talking about photography on the blockchain, and personally, I consider myself a bit of an amateur photographer. I definitely love photography in general, appreciate the art form. Personally, really like to take pictures of nature and both cityscapes and nature, which seems to be along the lines of what Jason does on a much higher level than I could possibly imagine. But very impressive, like kind of very artistic pieces of both nature and architecture. So I look forward to kind of seeing all about or hearing all about your experience and all about your kind of artistic journey and what brought you to the blockchain. So personally, I really think that the photography space on the blockchain is an interesting one to dive into, right? Because we've seen a lot of kind of speculation around the PFPs, which are, the profile pictures of massive collections, and people trying to invest into those as kind of a community to build a bigger project, right? And then in the art space, we've seen a lot of just your standard, traditional artists bringing their art onto the blockchain and selling it, but usually, really leaning into the scarcity of the art and trying to make a name for themselves on the blockchain, and then be able to kind of build onto that, right? And have this kind of story and provenance on the blockchain attached to their art. And so similarly, I think photographers, jump into NFTs for the same reasons, trying to, sell their photography on the blockchain and create new provenance and really maybe have some kind of scarcity attached to it as well. But I think that for whatever reason, there's been an interesting kind of differing perspective when it comes to photography in the NFT space. I look forward to hearing from Jason as somebody who's really been kind of taking the lead on this and working in this space. But I've also talked to a lot of photographers who have expressed a bit of frustration that maybe the art form is not as appreciated on the blockchain. And so personally, I have a growing collection of photography NFTs on Tezos, on Ethereum, a couple on Solana as well. So I definitely think that there is a market for it. I know that there is as a collector, but I do think that it might not be quite on the level or as successful as what we've seen with some of the traditional artists in the space being able to really, demand high dollar and also be able to kind of consistently, sell their art. But as we've seen, the market has slowed down significantly for everybody across the board. And so, selling your art overnight or thinking that, it's going to be a super easy thing, you just put your art or photography on the blockchain and you sell it, and now you've got a new career. It doesn't quite happen like that. So I think we've got a really great guest in Jason to kind of tell us about his experiences and maybe give some pro tips for those of you who are out there and exploring this option, and maybe you're a photographer and you want to try putting some work on the blockchain. Hopefully we can kind of glean some good tips and help you avoid some headaches along the way. So maybe before we dive into photography on the blockchain and all of your experiences, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to the blockchain and Web3 and a little bit of your artistic background before then? And thank you again for joining.
Yeah. Okay. That was a lot of expectations to come out of me today. So I've been a career artist for 12 years now, since 2012. And before, or in the beginning of my art career, at the end of my military career, I started investing. And that had become a part of everything that I do, like part of anything I earn in my art sales has gone into investing. So when blockchain came out in 2017, or not when it came out, but when I became aware of it, I started buying, crypto, and I got ETH, I got Cardano, I got, what was the other one? Lightning something, or I forget what it was.
Tezos, maybe?
No, I didn't get Tezos. I still don't have Tezos, but back then I forget what it was. Damn, I can't remember. Anyway, so I got a bunch of stuff in 2017 and then just kind of forgot about it. Right? I went through my first bear market like right after I got in. So I was left with a fair sized bag. And then when NFTs came out, I was already in blockchain. So I was like, okay, well, let's do NFTs too. Let's see where this goes. I was pretty skeptical at first. Not only skeptical, for a short time, I was like, this is all bullshit.
So what made you feel that way before we go any further?
I mean, I'm a trad artist, right? So I sell big pieces of art for a living. I've been doing it for years. So the idea that people were buying and spending money on digital stuff, what is that? What is it? Fast forward 3 years and I'm having coffee with one of my major collectors 2 days ago, trying to explain to him why digital stuff is important,
Nice.
why there's going to be a digital world. So
Nice.
It's been, it took a minute for me to realize that, to put away I guess maybe the elitist perspective I was developing as a career artist, and thinking, oh yeah, we are going to live in a digital world, and this is all going to be a part of it. So took about 3 months of me going, what the fuck? And then
So that would have been from kind of the hype around early 2021, you would say? Is that when you were really looking at, or even into 2020, or when did you start kind of taking a serious look at NFTs?
December 2020.
Oh wow, nice.
My first mint was February 2021.
No doubt. So you saw the Beeple craze and all of that. Maybe that helped make a decision.
I was in before Beeple.
Before Beeple. Oh, nice.
Before the Beeple.
So you were part of the same wave with Beeple then, I guess.
Well, kind of. Yeah. I don't know, because I didn't actually catch the wave. All of my friends did, but I just kind of sat there and was like, goodbye, guys.
No doubt.
I don't know if it was in surfing, but it's like I paddled my ass off and didn't catch any momentum in the beginning.
That's tough. And so specifically, have you tried to lean into just the photography, is there specific kinds that you wanted to mint? Did you go into NFTs thinking you're going to treat this like a lot different than your traditional career that you had, or was it more like just kind of do the same thing, put the same work on, and see how it works out?
Well, that's how I started. I started thinking that I was going to take my traditional work and just put it on blockchain, right? So I think I might be one of the first people to ever do an edition. My Genesis mint is an edition because I assumed that this market would be the same as the physical market. So like my work started out as like when I was younger in art, my work was all like editions of 300, and then it came down to like editions of 50, and now it's all editions of 5. But so I came into blockchain with one of my old pieces that was kind of more digital than just straight photography. It's a piece called Lana, if you're on the NFT site.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it. So that's your Genesis, my NFT Genesis. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was like, okay, well, this is an edition of 50 in the physical world. Let's just make it an edition of 50 here, and it pretty much flopped. Like that's my Genesis piece. I've never sold one. I don't think so. I haven't looked at that wallet in a hot minute, but I've only given them away.
Do you think that doing an edition as your Genesis piece, looking back, was the best move, or do you think that played a role?
It was a huge mistake because everyone was stuck on the one-on-one narrative, right? Two, it was photography, which didn't catch any type of momentum for like another year.
Right.
And 3, I don't know. I just came in with the wrong expectation. I came into NFTs thinking that I already have a 10-year career in art, and that mattered. But I sat in like.
That's tough.
I sat in.
It should matter. Yeah. I mean, it does matter. There's no doubt that it does matter. But I hear what you're saying. Like in the broader scheme of things, in that context, it might not have mattered to those degens out there, speculating on those NFTs.
It still doesn't matter to them. It's one of the things that it made me kind of walk away from NFTs for a few months, which took a big hit to my momentum. But also, it made me just kind of. It's part of why I changed what I do in the NFT space. But yeah, like I was, so we didn't really introduce me. So like I gave a TED Talk in 2018. I've been in National Geographic. I've been in the Weather Channel. I've been on entrepreneur.com with my photography. I've been all these places before NFTs. I came to NFTs and I was like, hey guys, look at me. And people were like, do you scribble, bro? And then no, leave. Like I had people straight up tell me that the so-called NFT gods at the time were like, nah, it doesn't matter. We don't care about your career, right? We care about what you did yesterday.
Nah, that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, it really pissed me off. So, so that was my experience coming into NFTs, and it's still largely that way. Like I feel like a lot of the major collectors in the space care more about what happened in the last few months. Well, here's the thing, like in terms of art investment, and this goes across the board, right? This transcends NFTs into the digital space. Your biggest gains are either in the super new people, but as an investment, like I can bet on all these newcomers, these early career artists, and I can bet on the super blue chips, and everyone in between is slow gains in terms of like turnover and whatnot. So
yeah, so it's interesting, right? I think you raise a very important point, and I definitely want to pick on that specific sentiment that you felt and what made you kind of step away from NFTs, because I've heard that a lot from especially photographers who, like you say, come in with 10 years of experience in art, and you're talking about having a very specific type of art style as well, right? But how have you, like, what is that experience like? What was the general sentiment that, aside from obviously degens just want to know, can this go to the moon? Am I going to make gains? But at the same time, you just mentioned, catching up with a collector over coffee recently, right? And I think that there is the speculation and investing side of NFTs, which, maybe 90% of the conversation seems to be around that, right? And then there is the kind of creator economy. I want to support artists. I want to buy art from artists that I admire. And I want to find new artists, which for me personally has been really the most kind of inspiring part of Web3, is having actually stumbled across so many artists from so many corners of the world, like yourself. We met in Miami, having a real conversation about your NFTs. You showed me your amazing photography and art and kind of like the story behind it, and it was just really cool. And then you also described your kind of experience on Cardano, and I was like, oh, I gotta, have you on the show and really get a full view of what it is you're working on and what you're doing, But I just wonder, like, it seems like a difficult space for the photographers, because ultimately you want to sell photography for the pure art, and not necessarily for the promise of going to the moon and for, a speculative assumption that things are going to go up in value. But given your career, given your experience, there's a pretty good chance that, like, your content is only going to go up from here because you've already got a really amazing resume. So it seems weird on one hand for people to be overly concerned about, short-term gains from your NFTs. But on the other hand, how are you feeling about the more positive side of the experience? And do you think that your collectors are generally collecting for the reason of supporting you? And do you think that that kind of side of the NFTs has been what kept you around and kept you going?
I think people buy because they like the art. And one of the challenges on the Cardano side has been the lack of an art market. So, I did the math, I think, after I got back from Basel, and I have like 1,900 NFTs sold.
Dang.
But most of them are not my fine art stuff. It's not my my traditional portfolio that's moving. It's the space I've had to expand into. Like, this the type of stuff that I wanted to create for my whole career, like the Guardian collection or the SNEC thing was fun, which actually was never on my radar, but it came like, but things like the Guardians, things like the mastering stuff, like those kind of pieces, I was never able to do because I couldn't find a market for them in the real world, in the traditional world. But I'm able to do in the NFT space, and that's pretty much what's kept me here. Is I'm able to create community and friendships, and then able to be more or differently creative in the NFT space.
Amazing.
So, that's what my experience has been. Like, moving the traditional art has been hard, but the ability to take some ideas that I've always had and never been able to give time to, because full-time artist for 12 years now. So that means in some ways I'm a creator, so I got to create from the soul, or whatever you want to call it in the woo-woo side. But I also got to create what sells, right? Like, I also got to move.
I respect that.
One of those things that come from the soul is also what sells, and that's kind of what I got to focus on. So that's what I've always done. Stayed in the landscape, stayed in the wall art space for the average Joe putting art in their homes. So that the NFT space allowed me to just be more me in a way.
So would that be the advice that you give to maybe other artists, and specifically photographers who are putting their work out there? Don't get discouraged by kind of the go to the moon crowd, and actually lean into the collector base. I really love your art crowd. And is there a way that you found has worked better for you when it comes to marketing to those collectors as opposed to the other side of the NFT market? What kind of advice would you give? Because it sounds like you've gone through a lot of difficult kind of perceptions of the market, but you've coming out on this side now, having sold 1,900 NFTs, having a collector base, having a bunch of beautiful art that's still on chain, ready to be collected. Just explain, maybe that advice. What is that advice you'd give to others that maybe have experienced what you just described from 2021?
I think that the NFT space, or the digital art space in its current iteration, is a hyper focus on the broader art market, a hyper focus on the things that work in the broader art market, where selling art in the traditional space online is a long-term relationship building with collectors. Like, that's what I do in my trad art space. Like, I run ads for my physical work. People come in, and then I nurture those leads until they become sales. All of that has been like condensed and then given steroids in the NFT space. So it's like, you take this idea of nurturing clients or nurturing collectors, and you take it and inject it with everything, like just the steroids of the NFT space. And instead of sell, it's still nurture, but you're nurturing on on roids, for lack of a better term. So like lean into community building before leaning into sales. And when I say community building, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like all of my friends in the NFT space, in the digital art space, they're not other artists.
Hmm.
I think one of the negative things that the NFT space has done is create hyper transactional relationships between artists, because we're all trying to market. So it's like, share my stuff and I'll share your stuff, right? And the algorithm does that to us too, where it's like engage, so that people will engage with you, so that you don't get lost in the dust. So like all of my friendships and my relationship building in the NFT space, in the digital space, has been with my potential audience, not my peers. Excuse me. So like I spend time in like the NFT discords, or not the NFT, but the project discords, and get to know those people. And those are the people who want to hang out when I go to Basel, or when I go to Vegas, or when I go to like, what's the other, Consensus, you know? And in terms of running a business, that's where I want my attention to be, is on my customer base. But the NFT space has also hyper coalesced the relationship side, where your buyers are your friends as well. And that's all really cool. So, you know, build community first, and then drop your art.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing
And
advice.
there's also got to be a meeting your market where your market is at. Like I can bring my trad art to the NFT space and price it so that it honors my trad art career. Like the floor on my physical work is $3,000. So like when I bring NFT stuff, like I'm kind of thinking about that a little bit when I'm thinking about floors. But most of the NFT market is not really a fine art market. Not really.
Yeah.
It's a Degen space. So where do I get to be? Where does my art intersect the Degen world, and where can I be? Where can I be like someone who helps the NFT space grow, or the digital space grow, but also completing my own vision? With it, there's compromise, but it's not really a sellout. It's a growth thing. So where can you intersect the markets that way? And some people don't have to. Like some people are creating really cool digital art. You know, like I follow this one woman, Petra something. Her art is fucking dope. You know, it's all like demons and relationships with demons and things like that. And she doesn't need to adapt. Right. But I had to. So, you know, I found different ways that I could, you know, become part of a community and then contribute to the community with my art.
Amazing. I think those are some gems right there. Great advice for sure. Yeah, and I think it comes down to adapting, taking that time, being a little patient is good advice as well, for sure. So I do want to dive into a little bit of the art process behind it. So you say that you photograph scenes of comfortable isolation, and I just thought that's so beautiful. And I went and looked through your photos after, and I was like, wow, that totally does vibe with exactly kind of like amazing art, whether it's the lone boat, you know, on this beautiful water, or the dock, things like that. Could you just give us a little bit of background on kind of your artistic journey? Now we've heard the Web3 journey, but kind of what brought you to, you know, photographing scenes of comfortable isolation, and how has that kind of you know, influenced you?
Yeah, sure. So this is, you know, I was in a dark place as a kid, right? I experienced some things, and I didn't really work them out to my 20s. And what happened was I started looking back. Well, I started photography in 2006, and then I got out of the military and I moved to Hawaii. And I got my master's degree, and nobody would hire me. And all this time I was working on my photography. I couldn't get a job. So I leaned really deeply onto the photography, and I started, you know, trying to get better. And then I noticed a trend. I started noticing, or actually someone pointed it out to me, but like a lot of my seascapes, because I was living in Hawaii, would include a single boat. But the composition would be such that it had a very ethereal solitude feeling. And someone was like, hey, why do you always do this? And I was like, why do I always do that? And that started like a multi-year dive into why I create art, right? Like, why do I do this? Why do I look into this? And I had to go back and answer questions about, or the answers to those questions required me to go back and look at some of the things that happened. And I kind of grew up living in my head a bit. a lot. Like if you saw me as a kid, I looked angry. And then when you saw me an hour later, I looked angrier. And that was pretty much the progression of my day. Wasn't really good at making friends. Had a lot of problems just like internally going on. And I was always living in my head until at some point, around about the time I joined the military, I started that narrative started changing and the space in my head became more comfortable. And I started, being able to kind of live in a walking meditation. And I'm no guru, like I'm no like woo person
Not
at all.
claiming to be enlightened necessarily.
No, not at all. It's just the conversations that were happening in my head were changing. And then that was starting to show in the art. And I realized I was writing a paper for my master's is when this really started coming together about ego depletion, which is a theory about the way we make decisions, and the energy we have in our mind, and that we have to step back and we have to figure out how to rejuvenate or how to refill our pool of energy so that we can make decisions all day long. And my interest at the time was very much in day trading. So I can make good decisions in the beginning of the day of day trading, but why am I making terrible decisions by the end of the day? What's happening in my mind that's preventing me from being the same person I was in the morning? And anyway, so I started learning about this like internal place where you had to be in, or like this kind of meditation, and this started coming out in the art. And then so the idea behind comfortable isolation is that I feel that people need to be able to spend time in their own head in order to grow. Right? That maturity, that the way people mature doesn't happen from conversations between you and I right now. Right now, we might trigger something, a belief in my mind or a resistance in my mind might get triggered, and then I spend time alone and I process those thoughts. But today, people don't spend time alone. Like,
yeah, it's weird. It's kind of stigmatized, right? I mean, I do, but a lot of people don't.
Well, so I mean, when I say time alone, I'm talking about like that belief or that challenge comes up in your mind and you have to deal with it. But instead of doing that, you pick up your phone and you spend time online, right? You're by yourself, but you're not spending time alone with your thoughts and your demons. So I wanted to create the places where I started spending time alone in my head so other people could do it. And those are my scenes of comfortable isolation.
Amazing. Amazing. Love the philosophy behind that. I dig it. I've been called a hermit once in a while, so I have a tendency. I'm a fan of introspection for sure. I love it. So let's talk about Cardano a little bit. So your Genesis NFT was on Ethereum, right? So what made you kind of jump into Cardano? Personally, as I mentioned before the show, I'm a fan of Charles Hoskinson, and I'm a fan of kind of the vision of Cardano, but I have not been active in the community, and I don't think I have a single Cardano NFT yet, I'm ashamed to admit. But what brought you to Cardano, and how are you finding the experience?
So in 2017, when I started investing, my biggest bag ended up being in Cardano. When I came back to NFTs, or I came back to crypto, and my question was, how do I mint on Cardano? Like February 2021, how do I mint on Cardano? And you couldn't. The first NFT on Cardano was in March, and there were still like months in between that and me minting because there was no information on how to do it. And it was really challenging. Actually, a lot of the founders and creators in NFT space on Cardano right now are there because they watched my YouTube videos.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah,
I just want to mint an NFT on Cardano. Somebody help me.
That's basically where I was, and I couldn't find info. So when I did find it, I made tutorials. But anyway, so I felt a little bit burned on the ETH side. One, because I left for a while, and two, because of the response I got to like, hey, your career doesn't matter. So I started looking at other places, and then when I jumped into Cardano NFTs, I just found a lot more community. Like I could have conversations with people, and it wasn't a transactional, like, hey, when are you going to share my post, right?
Right.
It was jumped into Discords and had conversations with people. One of my first sales on Cardano, and this may be the thing that made me stick, was to a guy named Hero. He's a firefighter in Pennsylvania. He was sitting alone in a Discord chat, in a live chat, and I was like, I'll just say hi to this guy. And then we talked, and he bought a physical piece from me using Cardano, using ADA.
That's amazing.
And so like that was kind of the start of just diving into that space. And what I found on Cardano versus Ethereum was a more intellectual conversation, right? It would, because Cardano's a lot more technical. There's a lot. It's in order to use it in the beginning, you had to understand it. Like ETH, you just get on, you might as well be minting on Etsy. It's the same fucking thing. You just upload your artwork and you pray, for most artists anyway, right? But on Cardano, you had to like understand how to mint. You had to understand the blockchain a little bit. So a lot of the conversations were very educational, which meant they were more interesting, and it really was able to latch on to people and community. That it wasn't all about a swarm of artists hovering around one or two collectors, and it was more about like, what is decentralization and why is this important? So that was the beginning in the Cardano community, and so that's where I decided to put some of my early work.
Amazing. And what's the experience like as far as actually technically minting on Cardano? And I'm sure over the couple years since that initial launch in March of 2021, it's gotten a little bit easier. I'm looking at your drop on dropspot.io. So there's a Cardano exchange for you. Anybody listening, that's dropspot.io. But how simple is it to mint on Cardano? Is it, what's it like?
On marketplaces, it's super simple.
Okay.
You just
similar.
upload and send it, right? But you have the option to mint directly from your website. Like before, like you can do that on ETH now with what is it called? It's not Montage. It's
Manifold.
Manifold, right? You can mint, and that's write your own smart contract and whatnot. But on Cardano, you can use like NMaker and then mint directly to a vending machine, which I try to stay topical. So, but you can go through a program like NFT Maker, nmaker.io, and then mint directly from my website, and all of that's free.
Awesome.
Right? There's no cost to minting until it's sold. Right,
okay.
And then the fees come out, which is like 1 ADA or something like that.
Yeah.
It's so small. That's one of the other things that brought me. Like I spent hundreds of dollars minting my work on Ethereum, thousands of dollars, but hundreds of dollars per mint. Like my first mints on Foundation were $300-400 just for gas fees.
That's wild. Yeah, those days of Ethereum, man, I can't even believe it. Like I look back at what I paid on gas, it's just like, why did I do that? And the worst part is the NFTs that I paid for them are even worth less now, way less. It's just like, oh my gosh, it was like loss on loss, Yeah. Yeah, that's a serious issue.
So no gas fees and all that, and reliable network, and that's what's kept me from Sol. Is Sol gets turned off. Sol's not really a blockchain. It's not really,
that is the criticism. That is the criticism. I like to believe these are just growing pains. I'm not totally dismissing Sol, although I totally get why people are, and yes, it has failed or been shut down on purpose like a handful of times, which is not a good look for any blockchain, but we'll see. I'm still hoping the devs are building long-term solutions. They just have such an active community, and I've seen some pretty cool art over there, so I do have a small bag of Solana NFTs, but I do need to get on the Cardano ones, because I agree Cardano is a very reliable, scalable blockchain with a very cool kind of community focus as well. Like I love what they're doing in East Africa and on the kind of micro economy side of things, which is what it's all about, right? Peer-to-peer and real change at the social societal level, not just a bunch of degen speculation, I give Cardano a lot of credit for that too. And so you're saying the collector base, you found it to be a little bit more maybe nerdy, maybe like a little bit more kind of like tech related, as opposed to just straight degen or speculation. And that one kind of happenstance conversation in a Discord is a really cool kind of example of what can happen in NFTs. That just you sold a physical piece too, so I guess the argument could be made, it doesn't have to just be NFTs, but the fact that I think it's the NFT community that brought you into that Discord, and now you have a collector both on chain and in the real world thanks to that one kind of conversation. You just speak to like that kind of as a snapshot of what your Web3 experience has been like, and do you think those are the kind of relationships that, like you said, kind of keep you around and are actually the most valuable ultimately as an artist, right? When you want to sell and you want to create collectors. So you just speak a little bit more to that, and like how you've gone forward kind of fostering relationships like that?
I mean, you just be a good person, right? In terms of fostering relationships, I don't do pushy sales anymore. I don't think anyone does. That doesn't work anymore. So it's fun being an artist when your job is really just to be people's friends, and every once in a while, show them what you got, right? I don't know what else to speak to.
No, that's
on
cool.
that.
That's cool.
Give me a prompt. But,
sorry, continue.
oh yeah, no, that's it.
You're good. I was looking at this Blue is a Mood, and I'm hoping Twitch doesn't get me in trouble because there's a little bit of nudity, but amazing, really like beautiful photography. Can you speak to your use of the female form? And you seem to be a fan of using some nudity, which is awesome. I'm supportive of that, but is there a reason you kind of sprinkle it in and it doesn't seem to be like core to the type of work you do, but you make some pretty awesome pieces around that? Any thoughts on that?
Well, so I'm still, everything I do, I try to fit into that feeling, that comfortable isolation feeling.
Isolation, yeah.
One of the things when I coach artists is you can work in multiple mediums and genres, but you can't work with multiple ideas, right? Like when you figure out why you create, you can create that same feeling in different modes, but you maintain consistency through your ideas. And the female form was something I always wanted to photograph, and I was always kind of afraid of, and I didn't do it until like 2018. So full-time artist since 2012, creating since 2006, but I didn't start doing portraits until 2018 because I was always worried about, I don't know what I was worried about. But
I feel like you have to have a certain level of confidence before you're like, you're going to pose like this for my photo and it's going to be beautiful and amazing,
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring a little bit of that isolation feeling into the art and using the figure, the form, right? So Blue is a Mood was part of that. Sundance on Sloika is a really great example of the intersection of comfortable isolation and the introspective side of what I do. And then the Aria collection is also a place where I really lean on the introspective side, and it doesn't really go into the visual isolation creating, just more on the story and of introspection and how I can put those ideas together into a visual. So yeah, Blue is a Mood is one of the first nude art collections on Cardano, I think.
Nice. It's hard to say first on the blockchain sometimes. You never quite know. It's like, I'm pretty sure I'm the first.
Unless you're one of the first.
Yeah, one of the first. Yeah.
One of the first on that blockchain, which I was.
There you go. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so 151 pieces. There's still 12 left. Still exploring different ways to do collections. So as a photographer, like how do you create fun and scarcity and gamification when you're doing what's essentially one-of-one work? Each photograph is arguably its own item, right? So like that collection has multiple, like there's multiple pieces in the collection, and each one has a different rarity.
Wow. Seems
but yeah, I mean, who doesn't love
to manage? What's that like? So there's collect 1, collect 3, collect 5, and so you're saying you get different images if you collect them. Is it randomized then? Which ones you get? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So so there's a project that I built. It's like called the vending machine on Cardano. So all of the NFTs are minted in their different quantities or loaded into the vending machine. And when you buy one, it mints and sends to you, but it mints and sends a random one.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I think Solana has a similar account. I don't think they call it vending machine. I can't remember what they call it, but they do have that option where you can kind of link everything right to the wallet, right on your website, and just cut out the whole marketplace, which is pretty cool. Definitely a great option. I keep going back to this mastering self one. So clearly not just a straight photograph, right? We got some amazing digital art happening here, a lot of light, a lot of beams and lasers or something. You want to give us just a little bit of a breakdown of what's happening in Mastering Self, a beautiful one-on-one that is available on DropSpot?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the intersection of the introspection and the creative side of the things I want to do. This I shot for Ali's 30th birthday, and I wanted to bring a few ideas together and add them into the photograph, right? Into this idea of her 30th birthday. So one of the things that I've been able to watch, we've been together 4 years, is her growth. And what does growth look like in my world of comfortable isolation? Right? If we go back to that story I shared earlier, it's I, you go into your mind and you have those discussions with your beliefs and your demons, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What does it look like for Ali to go into her subconscious and have basically a battle with herself, right? Because that's how we grow.
That's it.
And so if you take a piece, like if you can go to like jasonmatias.com/edge of solace, edge dash of dash solace.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene on that dock is basically like, I want you to be able to go out there, sit in the dock by yourself and have a discussion with your demons so you can grow, right? Then you have that infinite horizon of your subconscious where you can be. But out there on that horizon, somewhere out there in that ocean, are your demons and your beliefs. And when you encounter one, you battle it. Like you're the hero of your own story. And that's what I wanted to show. Like being out there on the ocean or in your subconscious, and then Ali, the hero of her own story, battling one of her demons, which is this big, scary storm thing, right? And what does that look like? Or what would that look like in your heart, in your mind? And that's how Mastering Self came along. So she's like
Amazing.
this heroic figure, but she's bare. Like you're alone in your mind. You don't have any shields. You don't have any. You're just yourself, and then you have this demon that's you. It's one of your beliefs. You got to battle it out in the ocean.
That is amazing. I love it. I'm glad I asked. So speaking to the storytelling, right? Because it's clear you have a very clear purpose behind kind of each one of your pieces, right? And how important do you think that is? And looking at NFTs, giving you that option to kind of add a bunch of text in the description that is then immutable on chain, right? As part of the NFT, so you can actually attach the story to the image. How important is the storytelling side of things, both in the NFT world, but also just as an artist for yourself?
I think context is everything in art. And now that we have AI creating stunning visuals, it's even more important that the context become a part of the art. And that's why, you can tape a banana to a wall and sell it for $170,000, because it's not the banana on the wall, it's the context of putting it there and the message. And really what happened in the world that around that banana, that's what made it valuable. That was the bet that the investor took. It's like, we're going to make a splash and this is what's going to look like. So, one of the things that I talk about when I talk about artists is your visuals are not your art. Your ideas are your art, right? It's always been idea that people attach themselves to that sells for a lot of money. The context around the art. So it's super important to be able to articulate that. We were talking about soul. My soul genesis is coming soon.
Oh, nice. Let's go. See, you were just shitting on them. Now you're going to get a Genesis NFT over there.
Well, I'm in business, right? So I have to.
I feel
you.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
And here's what happened: is a new soul marketplace reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're doing digitals. We'd like you to do it," because they see all the stuff that I post about digitals.
Awesome.
And I was like, "Okay, fine. Let's do it. Well, first tell me that you have a marketing plan, and then tell me how you're going to get market share, and then maybe I'll participate in your marketplace." They did, and they did. It's called Art Trade, and this is actually it right here.
Oh snap! Let's go. A little bit of alpha here. Oh, it's all packed up. All right, nice.
I'll show it to you.
Beautiful.
I'm talking about it.
Oh, it's okay.
But what was I going to say?
You were talking about the process.
Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought.
The storytelling, how important it is, and now you're going to.
Oh yeah, it's super important, because like how we deliver our art is through our stories, right? People put a piece of art on their wall, but then they get to talk about it. Right? That's why they have it. They get to have thoughts about it, and it narrates a part of their lives, and it changes their perspective. So having your collector be able to know your story and attach to it is super important. So the reason that I haven't minted on this marketplace yet is because they didn't have like the way they're able to list the story. It just right before I minted it just became one big block of text. And I'm like, that's not how you tell a story.
Ooh, that's not,
You need
no.
paragraph, you need storytelling structure. So I was like, fix that and I'll do it. And they did. So it's ready. I just have to do the work. But
and you know, how many artists would just say, okay, here, and not be like, fix this. Like, this is not okay. Just blumping all my text together. Like, we need real structure here. And I've seen that. I've seen that. I know OpenSea's description box is a mess all the time. I don't know if they fixed it, but it used to be that it was impossible to even create just basic spacing in the description field. So that's great that you kind of took that initiative, and now they fixed that for you, but they likely fixed that for everyone, right? So you really just did a service. Yeah. You just did a service to everybody jumping over there. So that's really cool. Art trade, hey, amazing. I love to hear about new marketplaces.
Yeah, I really love that they're doing the digital, right? So with this piece, there's 3 of these. I'm making a collection, and I'll just show you one of them. But
amazing. You really didn't have to unpack it, but I feel privileged. That's amazing.
Hey, this is what we're here for.
Let's go. Oh, wow, amazing. Is that an actual like rock formation that you photographed somewhere, and then you just did a little bit of Photoshop magic on it, or?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
Let me
move it a little bit to your right, just for the framing. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, a little bit of glare. Wow, your cat likes it too.
Excuse me.
What's your cat's name?
So I photographed this in Iceland.
Okay.
Put it on a cloud, and it was like, and then I took these stars from a different part of the world and this sunset from a different.
Oh,
but
wow.
the whole idea. There's 3 of these, and they're all like this cloud space idea, and all of the pieces are.
That's gorgeous, man. That's gorgeous. Yeah, down there you go. Perfect. That's amazing. Wow. Congrats.
They all have a story with them. Like that one's called Aether's Landing. I'm really big on God stories, not like gods in general. So this collection is Aether's Landing, Venus's Pillar, and Ra's Beacon. So each of these pieces is some sort of theme that attaches to this idea of like gateways to other worlds, which is part of the book I'm writing. That whole map is the storyline of a book I'm writing.
This is a true artist here, true creator. You got lots going on, man. That's amazing. You got a fictional world already drawn out, mapped out. You got a whole fantasy kind of storyline going with that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's a storytelling event for another time.
Let's go. So I'm hearing that it is very important to have some type of narrative attached to your art, right? Because I do think that, and not just photographers, but maybe I'll just talk about myself instead of talking about what I've seen from other people. But even myself, I've minted some photography NFTs that I did mostly for provenance. I had gone to NFT NYC, took some pictures that I thought were pretty cool. I brought my son's little Lego character with me, and I made like kind of theme around it. But I also just kind of basically threw it up on the blockchain saying NFT NYC, photos of some architecture that I really liked, and just put it there. I didn't give like an extensive kind of description or a story behind it or why I did it. I think for the Lego piece ones I mentioned, kind of as an ode to my son that I was trying to take these photos. But all this to say, I've seen a lot of people kind of putting NFT photography on the blockchain and just saying the art speaks for itself. And I get it. And I'm not saying that's a wrong way to go about it. But would you argue that that's not sufficient? Like, do you think that the whole kind of art speaks for itself, I don't need a description, I don't need a story behind it? How do you feel about that? Because I have got that kind of pushback from some people, because I'm a sucker for words, and I've had NFT art that I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, but then I read the description and I'm like, oh, that's amazing, buying it. Like that's happened to me on quite a few occasions actually. So I think it's really important. But what do you say to those people that say, oh, the art speaks for itself?
I think it's a cop-out. I think it's anyone can be creative, right? Like you can get good at painting, you can get good at photography, you can get especially photography, and this is one of the reasons I think photography is undervalued, is because it's a hammer, right? You make 3 settings, you push a button, take a good photograph, right? You know, so I go like this. So art equals creativity plus context, right? So you can be creative, just like the art that you buy at IKEA is creative. Someone did this splash, they plan these colors, they put it on the wall, they put it on the canvas so that people could accent their homes. But there's no context to it, so it's not art. It's just something you put on your wall. It's just decoration.
Yeah.
And so context is everything.
I agree fully. So I was mentioning my New York photos. They definitely don't hold a candle to these amazing New York photos I'm looking at that you have on Maker's Place here. So can you speak a little bit to how you photograph architecture? Because you definitely seem to be very intentional about the symmetry and the lines. And you got some with like a really cool kind of focus where you got, you know, stuff out of focus in the foreground and then the architecture behind it, which is really, really nice. Just anything you want to share about these amazing New York photos that you've got here?
It's still the same idea. Like, how do you create isolation in the city? Right? How do you create that sense of aloneness? And ironically, like, I'm from New York City, so ironically, like, the big cities are the places you feel the most alone if you don't have a community, because everybody's out there doing their own thing, and everyone's bubbles are not only shrunk down on them, but they're also armored, so it's hard to get into them, right? Okay. So how do I create scenes of isolation in a place where you're the least isolated? You know what I mean? And that's what I was doing. So, you know, the photo of Freedom Tower framed inside of framed inside of the Manhattan Bridge. Like, how do I make that singular? How do I make the Empire State Building singular? You know, how do I create these compositions? So, you know, that's just what I'm looking for compositionally, and that's how it fits into the narrative in my mind.
Beautiful. That's really amazing. And on your point about, you know, the camera kind of just being a hammer, right? And we've seen now with a lot of phones basically being able to take fairly high quality cameras, although the focus always kind of annoys me because it's not like a true focus. But anyway, how do you feel about like the idea that, yeah, it's kind of cheapened photography or made it seem like, oh, anyone can be a photographer, you know, to your point? And do you think that kind of sentiment is a lot of what impacts the NFT space as well for photographers? What do you just make about that kind of narrative?
It raises the bar on what it means to create standout work, visually standout work, right? So, you know, creativity, context, but you still need the creative part, right? Art equals context and creativity. So, yeah, it's tougher, right? And I think it should focus you on what type of work you want to create. And I guess, yeah, it's a little disheartening. The AI thing is even more disheartening, but
yeah, we can get into that too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Is it cheapening photography? Is it making things, you know, just unreasonable?
It's making it easier. It's making access to high impact visuals easier for everybody.
Right? It kind of cheapens it.
You know, you keep saying cheapening. I'm not saying it cheapens it, but maybe you're right. Maybe that is the right word for it. It doesn't. It makes it more commonplace. So how do you make something that's visually unique now? Well, you used to be able to just go do a landscape and do a really good landscape and light paint it or whatever, and, you know, edit it, and then people are like, whoa, I've never seen a landscape like that. But now you can just go do it with a button, and like that whole process comes out the way people that used to take a lot of work to do. And that's just progress. You know what I mean? That's just progress, and it comes at the expense of the people who don't adapt with it.
100%.
Right? So,
and I mean, the flip side of that is the part that bugs me a little bit is just knowing that the AI only knows that because humans put it into the internet. You know, it's not like they just came out with it out of nowhere. Like, they are pulling those references and concepts from actual things people created. That was always the thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But ultimately, I do agree that it is a tool, and generative AI is not going anywhere. And I'm not here to, you know, be fear-mongering about AI too much, but I do have some concern around it. And I've heard about some platforms actually trying to integrate AI in a way that actually rewards the original creators whose work gets pulled into the AI. We'll see if that has any legs, but yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts on AI before we switch topic?
No, not really. I mean, you just need a reason for why you create. Like, the narrative part becomes even more important when the visual part loses steam, you know?
100%. Yeah. That context. What was the line you just said? Art equals context plus creativity.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So you mentioned kind of the sentiment around fine arts, and we will be winding down here. I want to respect your time as well. And if anyone has any questions in the chat, now's your time to send them out before we wind down. But I want to get your thoughts on marketplaces, right? Because we hear a Maker's Place, for example, or a Super Rare, basically framing themselves as being kind of the fine art markets of Ethereum, you could say. How do you feel as like a fine artist, as someone who, like you said, you know, the floor on your physical pieces, $3 grand, $5 grand, whatever the case might be, you know, jumping into the blockchain, jumping over to a super rare, what's the experience been like? And do you think that there's, you know, a real lucrative market for photographers in the fine art space on the blockchain?
The market is in audiences. Right. It doesn't matter what kind of art you do. It matters what kind of audience you can build, and it's something I struggle with. Marketplaces are good for your resume. They're good for that's it, right? Like, I have my Genesis piece on Super Rare. You were looking at it a moment ago, the odes. I think if you go to the page for the odes, like, not if you link over to the Super Rare, it's got like less than 100 views, right? So how are you going to sell something if nobody sees it?
Right.
If nobody's going to the site, and, you know, just because it's on Maker's Place doesn't mean, or just because it's on Super Rare doesn't mean it's going to sell. Right. You know, so it's really about what kind of audience can you bring to your own art, unless the platform is going to support you. Right. So I'm on Super Rare because I was invited through Sloika's montage space, so like their curated gallery on Super Rare. And the whole idea, or the whole reason for going there was because Sloika was going to promote it for me, right? But that's not really happening, right? That's not. So, like, if you can produce your own art and sell it yourself, then you might as well just send people to your own website.
Yeah, and that's where it's, because a Super Rare and a Maker's Place, I believe they both take kind of bigger cuts, right, of your sales compared to, like you said, either just doing it yourself on a manifold or a self contract, or even some of the other marketplaces that, you know, take 1% or something. I think Super Rare and Maker's Place are both a little higher, right? I don't want to quote the wrong one, but I think it's like 5 or 10%.
It's like 5%. Yeah. Maker's Place is 15, Eesh. And they don't, you know, like, I did that drop. So I did those pieces on Maker's Place that I have because I was accepted into the whale community, so I assumed that the whale community was going to market with me, right? But they didn't. And then I did a feature drop on Maker's Place, which was pretty cool, but we did a phygital release like at the bottom of the bear market, so no one gave a shit. So, I mean, that's the reason I'm on Maker's Place. Otherwise, I would just mint it myself to my website and then direct traffic to my own site, which is why all my links go to my site. They don't go to Maker's Place. They don't go to whatever. If you're going to see the art, you're going to go to my space first.
I dig it.
So, like, don't stress if you're an artist. Don't stress about being on one place or another. Stress about the amount of people you can get to go to one location, which could be your website. And then if they're interested, they can go buy wherever. I mean, I've had I minted those odes. So I'm part of Nude Neighborhood, which is like this big art collective on ETH, or around nude art, and or figure art, I should say. And you know, like, getting onto Super Rare, I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm on Super Rare, guys. Woo! you. And then the major collectors in that room were like, yeah, we don't collect on super rare because we don't like their contract, whatever the fuck that means. Super rare's contract, like, so
Yeah.
it
Some
being in one place,
degens, picky
yeah,
degens, eh?
yeah, whatever. So if you can mint it yourself through your own website, and then you can create an air of know, like, trust around who you are, then you can sell anything. I mean, so it's audience building over marketplaces. Unless the marketplace is going to do some sort of feature drop for you, then do that, but hope that they come through too.
Mm-hmm. And so you'd say when it comes to marketing your own fine art, don't rely on a marketplace, essentially. And a lot of them seem to have, lofty promises of promoting your stuff and pushing it out there. And hopefully this art trade platform will be a better experience for you. It sounds like a really cool concept. But basically that would be your advice. Like, if you can, take your own route, unless you are very confident in kind of the marketing and the support that you're going to get from the marketplace.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and just realize that you have to direct traffic to wherever you're going to go. So you might as well own the place that people direct traffic to. So, even if you're on a marketplace, still send people to your own stuff. Like, don't have a link tree. Like, why have a link tree? You don't get to control anything. You can't advertise to it. You can't put cookies on it, right? So that you can retarget people. Like right now, the NFT space is very organic, like as of January 2024. But I bet by the end of 2024 that it's going to be just like the rest of the internet. And if you want to be a small business that sells products in art, then you're going to have to advertise somehow. So you might as well own your traffic. Anyway,
that's some good advice. That's some good advice. No, I've heard that don't do a link tree advice before, and unfortunately haven't quite set up our own website yet. Are still using that link tree for Web3 Warriors, but we're actually expanding into the metaverse and trying to do like a 3D kind of site where you can land and get all the information you need, but you also have like an immersive space where you can check out the NFT collection, check out what we've got on chain, check out web3warriors.io if you want to see that. It's a little gamer gallery that we've got. Do you have any thoughts towards the metaverse? Have you set up any kind of virtual spaces for your NFT art, or any art? I guess you can use a metaverse for physical pieces as well. Are you have any thoughts around the metaverse, or using that as a marketing vehicle as well?
I think that the metaverse is going to exist alongside the real world, but in an augmented sense more than in a fully digital sense. Okay. So yeah, I think it's got a really big future. I have a New York City gallery, a City of Dreams gallery on Spatial. So if you go to Spatial and you look up City of Dreams, you'll find it. And all those pieces you saw in Makerspace are there. Getting trad art people to go to your metaverse space has been tough. I've had 2 metaverse galleries now, or 2 virtual galleries, let's say. They're not really metaverse. And it's been cool to share. They're really neat in a gaming way, but they're not sales vehicles, right? But it is cool. So I run a program called The Art of Selling Art, and I teach artists business skills. And we had a few of our meetings, our coaching calls in my virtual gallery. And it was super cool to be able to interact with people that way. So the more seamless technology becomes, where you can step in and out of these spaces, I think the more important it's going to be, or the more ubiquitous you'll find those virtual spaces, because connection is everything. And right now, like, we're connecting on a 2D video screen, right? Yep. Whereas, I have full conversations with people in VR games, in metaverse games. They're basically metaverses, right? Where I can, like, we're doing whatever. He says something and I can look at him and he knows I'm looking at him, and that gesture means something.
Yeah, exactly. And so
yeah.
When you say that the space is not necessarily a good place for selling art, and thanks for telling me about your spatial spot. I actually found it walking around a little bit. Very nice. Beautiful framing of your art and everything. You got your TED Talk there. Very cool. So when you say that you don't think it's necessarily like a great marketing tool, do you think in the future these kind of experiential links will be more popular? Like, I just think about, like, even your website you just mentioned, right? Like, Spatial obviously is still on someone else's platform, but they're kind of going towards a space where your spatial space can land or exist on your own website and can still be kind of an experiential kind of process, right? When they land on your site, basically 3D websites is how they're kind of framing these, right? Do you see a future where, you know, you could just say, hey, check out my gallery online, flip them the spatial link, and now you got people actually using that to check out your art and buy your art, because you can click on it and zoom in and check the on-chain art and make the purchase right there? So you don't think that there's a future for that kind of
I think there
revenue?
is.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. Like, imagine, you know, like I'm having a conversation with the collector. I say, hey, meet me in the gallery.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then they have their glasses that they were using anyway, and they just turn it on so they can see inside the gallery. And then I'm standing there and be like, yeah, let me just put this piece on the wall right here.
Yeah.
Here's a couch so that you can see how big the couch is. And then this is what the piece would look like, and boom.
Yeah. Amazing.
And have a conversation about it.
Amazing. Yeah, that cityscape piece you have on the wall, or the wooden frame around it, like I want that in my real living room right now. I want that piece on my wall. It's amazing. I'm a sucker for a good cityscape shot for sure.
That's like the whole comfortable isolation thing, like the one you're looking at right now.
Yeah.
You know, with the cloud and the New York City piece.
The single cloud, solitary cloud there.
Well, we can do it digital. I think that the price of ETH right now would support that.
Hey,
let's
chat.
Up for it?
I'm open. We'll open to a conversation for sure. I mean, I know the fine art budget is the question, but I'm definitely down. So talking about Phygital, talking about back to the Solana piece, which I was really happy to hear that you're going to be dropping your first Genesis on Solana on a cool new marketplace. How are you looking at that Phygital conversation? And do you think a marketplace like that, where you buy the NFT, you get the physical piece and the on-chain art, is going to be kind of more common into the future? And do you like that idea? Because there are definitely those in the space who say blockchain's about digital. I don't even want to hear about physical. I don't want to touch your physical stuff. You know, there's that kind of the real degens out there who are just like full digital, you know, don't even talk to me about, you know, quote unquote physical art. But do you see a future for it, and how are you feeling about it?
Value. Tokenization only has value if it's attached to physical stuff. Like, that is the point of blockchain. Like, you're going to tokenize the real world assets, which requires real world assets, right? And there's a lot of people who want to play the fully digital game, and that's totally cool. Mm-hmm. But if blockchain is going to be a part of the world, and in the world we live in, then it's going to require a physical connection to things. So I think it's really great. Like, most of that conversation I had was onboarding a physical collector or a traditional collector to help him make sense of the digital space, you know? Like, he's already got a big physical piece from me, and he's like, yeah, send me your wallet so I can send you the certificate of authenticity as a digital asset. Nice. And you'll always be able to prove that you bought it and what it cost and all of that stuff for like your records. So it's an immutable record of ownership. And that's what the future is. So I really like it. I would prefer a digital world, like, where I can do additions, because all of my physical work is additioned. So I don't see, you know, just like my original Lana Genesis drop was an addition. Like, I don't see why they wouldn't mirror each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can collect, you know, I think that one piece that you were just looking at I put it up as a 1 of 1, but in the physical world, it's an addition of 5.
Okay.
So why wouldn't it be an addition of 5? You know, you pay once, you get you get both assets. But so I think that the future is going to move in that direction. And then and you know, why not allow more people to find enjoyment in your work, you know?
1000%. 3 Ethereum. I'm gonna have to stack up my bags a little bit, but I love it. I love the piece, and I would be honored to own that, both physically and digitally, or either. Or it's amazing though. Really, really just fascinating. So I was curious about the TED Talk. I was watching through your TED Talk. It was very cool, kind of breakdown of the kind of philosophy behind your photography, and it was really amazing. How did you find the experience, and do you think that doing events like that, a TED Talk, IRL, kind of like, again, I guess it goes back to what we've been talking about with the narrative and the storytelling, but how did it influence your career? How have you found the experience of a TED Talk, and do you think those kind of experiences are important, you know, for photographers and artists?
I thought my TED Talk was going to be a rocket ship, but it wasn't. Like, it's got like less than 10,000 views, right? And
hey, that's still a lot. Thousands is good, right?
Yeah. So the it's been a huge tool for like me being able to share like who I am with people, but on a platform that has some sort of accreditation, and curation to it,
Mm.
and that's been really great. Uh, and yeah, like anytime you can get on a stage and talk to people, you should do it if you're in the business of selling something, whatever it is. So yeah, go for it. But the TED Talk again, that goes back to highlighting the need for a narrative. Like I couldn't get up there and say, "Hey, here's pictures I took because I like taking pictures."
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, it's been a big part of opening doors for me. Yeah, I can't believe it was 5 years ago.
Hmm.
But if you can articulate your story, then so the whole thing about TED is ideas worth sharing. So you can craft yourself an idea and then go to TED and apply for it and see if they'll get you on stage.
There you go. That's all it took, eh? Just got to kind of have that confidence and that clear vision, and you can talk about it. Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually haven't seen many. I've seen one, I think, chat about a TED talk about NFTs and Web3, and it was actually F Render. I won't say his full name, but he gave a really cool talk about the Web3 metaverse and really just kind of shitting on Meta and the non-Web3 metaverse, and it was a really cool kind of breakdown. But I can't remember if it was a TED Talk or just a video that he posted. But anyway, yeah, that's great. And I hope they do more kind of Web3 focused TED Talks. That would be cool to see. Awesome. Thank you so much for these really great, insightful points. I think, you shared a lot of gems for the artists out there and other photographers out there maybe to glean from. I'm curious, you mentioned the Solana marketplace, so that's pretty exciting. Is there anything else around the corner that you want to share with us? What's next for Jason? What are you working on? Looking forward to? Excited about?
I have a new release coming out. It's 3 new pieces in the physical space called Peace, Passion, and Tranquility. That comes out on Wednesday. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
I'll show you those pieces when we go offline, because only prior collectors have seen it so far.
Wow.
And then
awesome.
so that's what's next for me on the art side. On the Cardano side, I am working on, I haven't done yet, but launching another meme coin derivative artwork, like the SNEC one that you saw.
Right.
Yeah. So there's another meme coin that's is big on community, and I get to go online and have people to talk to every day because of this community. So me, Ali, and the creators of this other meme coin called Friend are working on, hasn't finalized, but there's going to be a limited edition artwork that we're going to do, and it's going to mix. It's going to be a bridge between the work that Ali and I do together. It's kind of like this fairy tale photograph that we took. Nice. Brighter, a little bit brighter, happier than higher than Mastering Self.
Right.
And meme community. So, and that'll be really fun to make and put out and see everyone's reaction to it when it gets released.
And speak to your thoughts on the meme community. So we got your SNEC piece up on the screen right now. And in general, I think outsiders, meme coins is one of those areas. It's just kind of like pretty degen, very crypto, right? And it's just like, but it's for the culture. You look at what Doge did, for example. The latest one we've been hearing about is Bonk over in Solana land. Obviously, Pepe last year made a pretty big splash. We'll see if they stick around for the long term. But there's a lot of them out there, right, that are very kind of like fun, and they're meant for fun. They're meant for really the community to just kind of like see what happens, find reasons to use them, find projects that might want to incorporate this meme coin for whatever reason because it's on brand for them. But what are your thoughts on meme coins, and what made you take part in this SNEC, which is a really cool piece with a snake puffing on a pipe and a bunch of cool SNEC coins around them? But yeah, what made you kind of take part in that, and why do you think meme coins are a net positive for a blockchain like Cardano?
Meme coins are like PFP projects, but they're more inclusive, right? Like you can't get into BASIC right now, right? You can't get into, even like on Cardano, there's Space Buds and there's Clays, and like the floor on those are thousands, right?
And those lion guys, right? I remember there were like some NFT lions or something. They were doing pretty well on Cardano. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what that one was, but yeah, I mean, so meme coins are large community generators.
Right.
And then there's, because it's a blockchain, everything becomes financially driven, and money is like the big common denominator, right? Like, what is that? A smile is the same in every language, so is money, right? So
Nice.
it's like, how do you pull people together around ideas and whatnot? So I think that the meme coins are cool. I get a little bit exasperated by like how many there are. There's a lot that they're still businesses. So it's like some of them are rugs, some of them are just there to steal from to use community in a negative way. But then there's the ones that are like they're actual community generators with actual tangible and non-tangible value. So I think that Snek is one of them. Fren is another.
Nice.
I don't know about Bonk. Like, can you go into a Discord and talk to people and about Bonk?
Yeah, they've got a pretty good community. I personally don't do that, but yeah, they have, and they're kind of like seen as, between them and Samo is another one that's on Solana. They're kind of like the Genesis meme coins of Solana, you could say. Samo was before Bonk, but Bonk has done a little bit better. But yeah, it's a similar thing, like you're saying. It's basically something to rally around, something for developers that are in Solana. I'm just talking about Solana because those are the meme coins I have. In Ethereum, I find it's a little bit more costly to try to like play in the meme coin space because, the gas fees and all the rest. But yeah, definitely, I hear what you're saying, and I like your point about accessibility. So it's kind of like PFP projects building out for community reasons, but much more accessible. And there's like, I think, less promises, right? It's like, let's just have fun with this and see where it goes for the most part. There are some that might, say, oh, it's going to 10x in a month. You should buy in now before you miss it and all that kind of stuff, which you're always going to hear in the meme coin land, I think. But generally, to your point, there are those who have kind of a head down, developing, working on stuff and using the meme coin for fun or for branding reasons, right? So very cool. So you got Friend coming up, you already dropped the Snek, and you got 3 new physical pieces dropping in the real world that you're looking forward to this week. Congratulations, man. That's amazing. No questions from the chat. I want to thank everyone who joined us for the whole conversation. Appreciate you. Let Me Out Production said it was wonderful stuff. We got Idris in the crowd. Thank you, Idris, for joining. Thank you, everyone who joined and stayed quiet, as our watchers and listeners often do like to do. Do you have anything else you want to share, Jason, before we wind down here?
No, man. Thanks for having a fun morning.
For sure. I hope we can connect maybe in Miami at Art Basel, or do you plan to go to NFT NYC? Have you ever been to that event yet?
I've been twice. So,
nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, maybe I'll be there in April. Maybe we'll cross paths. Yeah, for sure.
Let's go do some photography then.
Let's go. I would be honored to be able to tag along with you for any photography. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We'll be back next week with another episode of Web3 Warriors, as always. And until then, I'll catch you in the metaverse.